Hello and welcome to this Dynamicweb webinar. My name is Mikkel and today I'm going to talk about Razor templates in Dynamicweb. First, a short agenda. I will start off by talking a little bit about Razor, and then I will move on to talking about using Razor templates in Dynamicweb, and then we will end off this session with questions from you guys. About Razor. Razor is a view engine for ASP.NET, and you have probably worked with other view engines or template engines, for instance, the one in Dynamicweb. But the Razor has a very simple syntax, as you can see in this slide, where you just put in an @ sign and then a variable, or you can have an expression and you can use if statements and stuff like that. And Razor supports both C# and Visual Basic, depending on the extension of the file name extension. And you can read more about Razor in general and see some really nice examples of how to use Razor on the blog post introducing Razor. Razor in Dynamicweb was introduced in Dynamicweb 8.2.3 that was released at the end of May, on the 28th of May. And we use something called Razor Engine, and I put a link here in this slide where you can read more about the Razor Engine and what it does and how it helps, makes it easy to use Razor. And one important thing to note right now is that the Dynamicweb Razor support is a beta release. So there are still a few issues we need to figure out how to do, and maybe something will change, but we have basic support for using Razor in Dynamicweb, starting with Dynamicweb 8.2.3. And a question that I've heard sometimes is, why do we need Razor in Dynamicweb? Because we have a template engine right now that can use almost basic HTML with our own syntax for having placeholders and using template tags. And we can also use XSLT. But sometimes when you do front-end development, there's some basic things that you want to do that you cannot do using. You can probably do it using XSLT, but it may be very, very hard. Or you use the Dynamicweb HTML template engine, where you cannot do a lot of stuff that you need to do. We recently introduced the stuff called template tag extensions, where you can add your own template tag extensions and, for instance, to get a substring of a template tag and stuff like that. But every time we do this, or you add something yourself, you have to create some custom code to be able to do something to make certain computations in the front end. And when introducing Razor in Dynamicweb, we have the full power of .NET in the front end, and we can, for instance, use the Dynamicweb APIs to get stuff from the database or update stuff in the database, and we can do anything and do almost any computation that we need. But in practice, we should not do a lot of stuff in the templates in the front end. In theory, it's possible to build a lot of business logic into the templates, but we should really not do that and just use templates as a view on the data model that's running in the backend. And the way we've approached implementing Razor in Dynamicweb is pretty basic and pretty simple. So we still have a collection of tags, and tags can be accessed using the getValue method. So you just put an @ sign and then the function called getValue, passing it a string containing the name of the tag you want. So I have a short example here where we get the value of the tag ecom::product.name. And for those of you who have been working with Dynamicweb templates, you will recognize most of this, some of this. And one thing to note is that getValue returns an object. And furthermore, getValue does not support global tags. So we need something else for handling global tags. And since getValue always return an object, it will be quite as cumbersome in some situations where you have to to cast that object to a string or something. And for that reason, we've put in a number of convenience methods to get a string, an integer, and a boolean, and a double. So rather than writing get value and then a string with a name, you can write get integer and then the name of the tag in a string, and then you will have an integer you can use in conditions, for instance. And now I'm going to talk about how you can get started with Razor in Dynamicweb. Some of you may have been using Razor in other CMSs, and some of you have not. And sometimes I've been discussing with you, some of you, how to get started with using Razor. And because we can do anything in Razor, the question arises whether we have to be, do I really have to be a real backend programmer to be able to use Razor in the front end? And the short answer to that question is no, you do not have to be a .NET programmer. You just basically you can make very small changes to your current HTML templates and start using Razor in Dynamicweb. And an important thing to notice is that you don't have to convert all your templates to Razor. So you can have your Dynamicweb site running as it is today, and then you can start using Razor in some templates. For instance, if you need to do some small computation on a product list, for instance, say if you want to make sure that if the product description contains more than 50 characters, say, then you can easily convert your product template to being Razor, and then you can use the Razor methods for chopping off the product description if you only want to show the first 50 characters and then add 3 dots after that. And to help you get started with using Razor, we've added a Convert to Razor button in the file editor, so you can edit your current HTML template and then have it, the system converted into Razor. And this conversion is not perfect, but it's a good starting point to get something that works, and for you to see how you would you know how to do something in the Dynamicweb HTML templates, and then you can use the Convert to Razor button to see how the same stuff can be done using Razor. And of course, something that's really important when you start using some new technologies is that you try it out. So you should really try this, and if you've never used Razor before, you should just play around with it. It's pretty easy to work with. I'm still new to Razor, but I think it's basic stuff is really easy. And of course, you can do a lot of advanced stuff. But as I mentioned before, you should keep away from doing a lot of computation and programming in the front end. So play around with it, try it out. I'll just talk a bit about some of the basic conversions that are needed to go from Dynamicweb HTML templates to Razor templates. And on this list, I've just shown how you can do it by hand if you don't want to use a Convert to Razor button, or you just, because you're curious, you want to know what's going on. And basically, the first item here is something that you should all know from HTML templates, just a basic template tag that's put into the template, and you can just convert this to get value and then put in the tag name as a string. So that's very basic, and there's no real .NET programming involved in this. If and the matching end if is converted into add if, and then the condition in parentheses, and then the content you want to render inside curly brackets. And I just note here that the examples I will be showing you today will all be C#, but you can also use Visual Basic in your Razor templates if you prefer that. And similarly, if defined, that's just a regular if expression, where of course you have to check that the value inside the defined up here is a Boolean value in some sense. And in a short while, I will show you the Convert to Razor button, and it handles this automatically for you. And of course, we also need to be able to use loops in our templates, and the old syntax is a loop start with a name, and loop end with a name. And in C# you will write this as a for each, where you get some variable and get a loop and iterate through that loop using the variable you've set. So now I'll switch to a live demo so I can show what is going on when we're using Razor in Dynamicweb. So here I have a very simple website with just 2 pages. We have a front page and we have a products page with a product list and product details. So that's basically it. I'll just switch back to the front page. And this website uses Razor templates. And I will just show you the templates. In the back end, I have in my designs folder, I have a webinar design. And in this design, I've created a file called main.cshtml. And the file, since the file has the extension cshtml, it's a Razor template. And you can also see that the icon reflects that this is a C# Razor template. Let me just show that. And you can see this is a C#, this is a Razor C# template, but it looks just like any regular Dynamicweb page template using a master page. So you don't have to change anything, and of course I've changed this into a Razor template just to try it out and see what happens. And then I should open up my master page where some of the interesting stuff is. Here I have the old master from my regular HTML-based website, and here I have my master, Razor template master page. And you'll see here there's some @ sprinkled all over this file. Up here I'm importing a namespace that I will use further down the file. And here I have an if expression where I ask if the current user has an ID that's greater than 0, then I will write welcome to the user. Otherwise, I will show a sign-in form. Down here, I get the name of the current website. And since global tags are not available in Razor to be used with the get value, I actually use the page view object that I have. So my Razor template has a page view object, and I can use this object to get the values I need. So here I get the page view object, then I get the area, and then I get one of the values, and here I get the value called area name. That's the name of our area. And going a bit further down here, I have a Razor block where I declare a variable called page name, and I get a value from the page view.page, values page menu text, and I convert this to a string. Down here in my page title, I just put in an @ and then the name of my variable page name, and this will render the actual value of the page name variable in the front end. And down here, I do a bit of stuff with using the HTTP utility to URL encode my request. And back in the day in Dynamicweb HTML templates, I would be using a global tag for getting the request URL. But using Razor, I just do it in plain .NET. So I do this, and I can call a method, and here I use the page name variable again. And finally, down here, I put in a copyright where I just want to show the current year. So I just put an @ and then a .NET expression. That's datetime.now.year. So that's very basic Razor, and maybe this is new to some of you, but I hope I get the message across that it's not that complicated to go from regular Dynamicweb HTML templates to using Razor. Of course, there's some stuff going on up here, but you'll quickly learn what values you need up here and just be able to write this really quickly. I'll close this master. Then I'll just switch back to the past version of our main page template, the main.past.cshtml, to show you what the system does. Of course, it adds some of the stuff that you know from the old template engine, where it adds some stuff. Up here in the title element, it will add a template tag, but now since we're using Razor, it will, rather than outputting old template tags, it will now output Razor syntax. So it will be using the get value to get the title and the meta tags and the copyright notices and the styles using JavaScript and a lot of stuff. And it also uses get value to get navigation. Here we have the top bar navigation, and further down we get the content on the page. So get value is used both to get tag values and also to get content values in content placeholders. But this should all look familiar to you apart from the syntax. Okay, so now I'll jump into showing you how to convert an existing template to Razor templates. And then I'll just switch back to my content view. On my products page, I have my products paragraph here with the settings. And this is really basic, a very simple product list template I can just show you in the front end. I haven't been doing a lot of stuff. It's just the name and then add to basket and then the description of the product. Now I will edit my product list template. Then I get my file editor. You see it's just as you know it. Then I'll try to convert this to Razor. So I'll just click the convert to Razor button up here and affirm yes, I want to convert it to Razor. And now Dynamicweb automatically converts the template, the HTML template, to being a Razor template. And it's a pretty basic translation. You can see here that we have the get value with a name, and we have a loop for each loop item I in get loop. And then you have to notice that inside the loop, we should use add I.getValue, or whatever you're calling your loop value, because now we want to get values from items in the loop and not values from out here. So yes, and that's, so we have an for each, and the for each ends down here. So that's a basic conversion, and as I mentioned, this conversion is not perfect, but it really does a good job of converting HTML templates to Razor templates. And we've been trying with converting all our default templates, and they work out of the box after being converted with this tool. But you may run into issues depending on the complexity of your current HTML templates, and then you may have to go in and edit the Razor template by hand. So now what I will do, I'll just save this as product list.cs HTML. And now I can switch to using my product list CS HTML. I'll save and close. And then when I refresh my browser, we shouldn't see any changes. Because all I've done is that I've converted my template into being a Razor template. So just jump back to the product list and edit the template just to show you that it really is a template, Razor template. For instance, I can just put in date, time, but now up here, save it, and then refresh. So now you see here I get the date in the default date format. So now we're running a Razor template in this. So it's really impressive that this conversion tool can do it, and it does a really good job. And now we could think about what we need to or want to do in this. And of course, we could do a lot of cool tricks, and I'm sure you will come up with some really cool stuff that you can do in your front end templates now, and you should do it if you know what you're doing, but keep in mind that templates should be templates, and meaning views on some model, and all business logic and stuff like that should be kept out of the templates. So you should just keep the things you should do in the template should be very basic, like comparing it. If a value contains some other value, then you can show one thing or maybe show another thing. So stuff like that will make perfect sense. I'll just jump back to my just to show you again. If I edit the product list, this is a basic template without any loops, so that's also easy to convert to Razor. And we can notice here that this conversion actually does not, as of now, use our convenience methods. So it just put in some white space to make it clear what is going on. So it just says if Dynamicweb input format Boolean, then it gets the value. But I could actually change this to get Boolean, and then I will get some Boolean value back from the template. But of course, I should actually do it. I should probably check whether this image large default clean has a value. So rather than get a Boolean, I should get a string, and then afterwards I should check if that string is non-empty. So I just write if string is null or empty. And then I have, and of course it should be if the string is not null or empty, then I should show the image. Otherwise, I don't show anything. So hopefully this works. I just save it and set it on my template. And now it seems to work, apart from the fact that I don't have any images. But I'll just show something else we can do in here. But it's really basic, and for those of you that are a bit worried whether you have to be a .NET programmer, you will benefit from being a .NET programmer when using Razor. But anyway, it's very basic, the stuff you need. You just need stuff like this just to check whether a value is null or empty, and then you just need a very simple method call. And maybe you'll find out that you actually are a .NET programmer and you just start to do some nice things in the front end. One thing that I should mention here is that we have this text element that's not, of course, not a part of HTML. And I can show you down here why we need that. Because Razor is meant to deliver HTML content. So if I have some condition down here, just say if 1 equals 1, that's true, then I will write some string like this. Say, if I do this and save and refresh my page, then I will get an error. So one thing to notice is that Razor is really unforgiving. When using HTML templates, you can introduce some errors in the template, but the template engine will try to render the template anyway, and it's really forgiving. For Razor, if there's something in the Razor template that Razor cannot understand, then it will complain, and it will show a message like this. So basically, what's wrong is that I've made a program mistake down here, so I should just fix that. I'll try this. That works. Sorry. And now you'll notice that Razor expects a semicolon down on this line, and that's basically because everything inside an if block should be Razor code, but this is not Razor code. This is a text I want to display. So for this, I need the text element. It's not a real element, and Razor will not output the text element, but it will output the stuff inside the text element. So if I do it like this and jump back, then I will get my one is one text. So you just have if you're inside an if expression and you want to output some plain text without any elements around it, you have to use the text element. I could also make this an HTML element that will work the same, but now Razor knows that this is a real HTML element, so it will output that to the front end. Let's just check that. So now you see, now I have a strong emphasis on my one is one. So that's one of the caveats you should beware of when using Razor, that if you want to emit simple strings inside if expressions, you have to wrap them in text. But apart from that, it's really easy to use Razor, and hopefully the Convert to Razor tool will help you get a good start and hit the ground running when you start using Razor templates in Dynamicweb. So that's it for the demo right now. And as mentioned, this Razor support in Dynamicweb is a beta release, and there are some issues that we need to resolve. And when you start playing around with it, you may find some other issues or some feature requests that you have. And our documentation on Razor in Dynamicweb is in the works, and it should be available within a week or so. And during this beta phase, you should use the forum for suggestions and discussions on how to use Razor and how we can improve Razor support in Dynamicweb to make it easier for you to use Razor and get the full benefit of using this really powerful template language. And I urge you to try it out, play around with it, and see if you can make it work, and see what kind of cool templates you can come up with. I'm confident that you will find that it's templating or front-end programming in templates will be a lot easier using Razor, and you can do a lot of stuff without having to resort to using custom Dynamicweb code. So now that's enough from me. So now if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Oh, see, there's quite a few. Okay, I have a question here. Read the get value method that does not support global tags, and whether support for global tags will become available in the final version. And we will not support global tags in the final version because you don't need them. Everything that's in the global tags is accessible in Razor templates. The global tags basically contains information on the current request, on the current user, and some page view properties and website properties, and some system information and current date and stuff like that. And you can get that using the page view object and properties on the page view object. And as part of our documentation, we will create a dictionary to show you how you translate stuff from old HTML templates, for instance, global tags, how you translate that into Razor syntax. And there's another question, will page extenders and paragraph extenders stay available now and in the future? and that's yes. And can they be used in combination with Razor templates? And the short answer is yes. You can create page extenders and paragraph extenders, and the new tags you add will be available in Razor using a get value. And we don't have any plans of deprecating or not supporting the current HTML templates, but we will probably not add much, if any, new functionality to HTML templates. Yes, and there's a question here if the page template is in Razor, and then what about paragraph and module templates in HTML and the other way around? And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but I should have mentioned it that you can mix Razor templates with old HTML templates. So your page template can be Razor, and your paragraph templates can be HTML, and certainly and also your module templates. So and that's the reason for so you don't have to convert everything into Razor to use Razor just in one place. You can just do it as you need Razor, and so you can use whatever template language suits your needs best in the context you are. So you are perfectly you can have your page template being HTML and then use Razor in a paragraph template if that makes sense, or the other way around. So now there's a question here. So I will be able to target anything from everywhere. Um, and basically, you can do anything in Razor because it's .NET. So yes, you can do anything. But I cannot stress this enough. You shouldn't be doing a lot of business logic in your front end templates. So any more questions? Yeah, there's a question here about the template tag methods, and I assume that's the template tag methods that we recently introduced in our HTML templates, and basically you can do that yourself in using Razor. For instance, having a substring or stripping HTML tags or whatever. You can do that using regular .NET in Razor templates. Yeah, and there's a question here: will there still be a DW template tag to get a list of all the available tags? And probably there will be, or it works right now with the DW template tags, and you can get a list of available tags. And we may also come up with some other helper methods so you can see what properties are available on something, for instance, so you can see what kind of values it makes sense to get from the area from the page object. And there's a follow-up question here on the template tag extensions, whether we will continue to support them. We will definitely not remove them from the product, but I'm not. I cannot promise you that we will add new ones. Of course, it depends on what kind of tag extension methods you need, but we don't have any plans of removing existing functionality from our HTML template. So so there will be some kind of support for the tag extension methods, and you will still be able to create your own, of course. And there's a question also here: will you introduce helper classes? And yes, we will probably introduce some helper classes to make it even easier to use Razor in Dynamicweb. And this beta release is pretty basic, and we need to get some more knowledge on what you need, and to play around more around with Razor to see what we need ourselves to make it easier to work with. So there will be some more helper classes. And then there's a question here: what are the main benefits of using Razor in relation to the end customer? Um, and that's a really good question. Of course, if you are really good at using Razor, you can basically, the end customer shouldn't really care about how you implement the templates in Dynamicweb. So it's up to you as a front-end developer to make the decision whether you want to use Razor or use HTML or XSLT for that matter. But I suspect that some of the stuff you need that you currently need template tag extension methods for, or even custom code, you will be able to write directly in your templates. So it may be so maybe it will benefit the end user, but only time can tell. I think that the end users will see a benefit when you start using Razor templates, because you can do a lot of stuff without having to create custom modules and stuff like that. But we'll see and where this takes it. Oh, that okay. There's a question here from Steen. He asks like get paragraph and then some paragraph ID, and we will support stuff like that, of course, to insert paragraph by ID on places in the template. And there's a question whether the dynamic web support will be upgraded to understand and support .NET. And yes, they will. They are really interested in this Razor, and of course, we will all in dynamic web. We will know something about Razor, so we can give you good support when you run, if and when you run into any issues with Razor. So we will help you as much as we can. So, any more questions? Yeah. And then there's a shout out. Looks great. Yeah, it looks great, and it is great, and I look forward to see what will happen, and where you guys will take your dynamic web templates using Razor. So if there are no more questions, I'll just say thank you for your time, and use the forum for comments and suggestions on improving Razor support in Dynamic Web. So thanks. Yeah, and there's a plea here from to everybody. Please share your experiments, and you can do that on the forum or GitHub or Codeplex or wherever you do. But please do share anything, any cool stuff that you come up with. So great idea. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.